It was the first day of the new year, and the air was filled with a sense of renewal. The sun shone brightly, promising a day full of possibilities. The streets were bustling with excitement, people setting their goals and resolutions for the year ahead. It was a day full of hope and fresh beginnings. For Neil and Hannah, this day felt like any other. As schoolmates, they were used to the usual rhythms of life, but today, something was different. Maybe it was the change in the air, or the quiet promise of adventure that came with the first day of the year. They had decided, as part of their lunch break, to visit the old temple on the hilltop. It wasn't far, just a short walk through the town and into the quiet woods that surrounded the temple. Neil, the quieter, more introspective of the two, always felt a sense of peace there. It was a place of reflection for him, a place to gather his thoughts. Hannah, on the other hand, was driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery. She had often wondered what secrets the ancient temple might hold, and today, that feeling seemed stronger than ever. As the bell rang for lunch break, Neil and Hannah met at the school gates. Hannah, with her usual energy, was already brimming with excitement. "Let's go to the temple today," she suggested, her eyes gleaming. Neil nodded quietly, already looking forward to the peaceful walk. "I've always liked how calm it is there," Neil said, adjusting his backpack. "It's a good place to think, especially on a day like today." Hannah agreed. The temple was a short distance from their school, hidden away in the woods atop a hill. Though they had visited many times before, each visit felt unique, as if the place was offering them something new each time. The two friends set off, walking along the winding paths that led through the village and into the forest. The trees stood tall, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. Birds sang softly, and the scent of fresh earth and pine filled the air. The world seemed calm and quiet, almost magical, as they made their way up to the temple. Little did they know that the quiet of the day was about to give way to something much darker and mysterious. As Neil and Hannah arrived at the temple, they were greeted by the familiar sights of its old stone steps and weathered walls. It was a peaceful place, surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to whisper in the wind. Neil walked up the steps slowly, his footsteps echoing in the quiet space. Hannah, with her usual enthusiasm, ran ahead, eager to explore. The air was still, and the only sound was the distant rustling of leaves in the trees. They had visited the temple many times before, but today, there was something different in the atmosphere, a quiet tension that neither of them could explain. As they stood in front of the temple, a small cat appeared from behind the stone pillars. It was sleek and quick, darting between the columns with a mischievous gleam in its eyes. Hannah, always the curious one, instantly took off after it, laughing as she chased the cat around the temple grounds. Neil, on the other hand, stayed back, enjoying the peaceful atmosphere as he sat on a stone bench and closed his eyes. But as he prayed, his mind began to wander, wondering what Hannah might be up to. Hannah's chase led her beyond the temple grounds, into the surrounding woods. The cat was quick, its movements so fast that Hannah struggled to keep up. But soon, she found herself alone in a small clearing, a sense of unease creeping up her spine. In the center of the clearing stood an old, weathered grave, its inscription barely legible. The surrounding area was overgrown with thick grass, and at the base of the grave, she spotted something strange, a small wooden box half buried in the dirt. Intrigued, she knelt down to examine it. When she opened the box, a faint glow emerged from inside, and she found a strange object resting there. It hummed softly, casting an eerie light in the surrounding darkness. For a moment, Hannah was transfixed, her fingers hovering over the object, drawn to it like a magnet. Just as she was about to touch it, the cat reappeared, darting across her path once more. Hannah hesitated, a sense of unease settling in. The cat seemed to be watching her, as if urging her to follow it. Hannah stood up and followed the cat, but soon, it disappeared again, leaving her lost in the woods. She searched the area, but the deeper she went, the more unfamiliar everything seemed. Panic began to rise as she realized she had no idea how to get back. Finally, after what felt like hours, Hannah found her way back to the temple. As she emerged from the woods, she saw Neil standing at the entrance, his eyes scanning the trees for her. "Where did you go?" Neil asked, his voice filled with concern. Hannah quickly explained everything, the chase through the woods, the grave, the box, and the strange object inside. She told him how she had felt drawn to it, but was interrupted by the cat. Neil, intrigued by the strange events, agreed to go with her and see the spot for himself. When they arrived at the grave, things had changed. The area around it was darker than before. and the air felt thick with tension. The grave, once a simple and quiet place, now felt sinister, as if something was watching them. Both of them came near to the box but found it empty and dark inside. Hannah and Neil stood in front of it, unease settling over them. "I think we should go," Neil suggested, his voice quiet and filled with fear. But just as they turned to leave, a voice echoed through the woods, cold and harsh.
Curse you, Lord."
Both of them froze, their hearts racing as the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The forest around them seemed darker, and the air grew heavy with a strange and terrifying energy. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shake. At first, it was a subtle tremor, but within moments, the force of the earthquake grew stronger. The trees swayed violently, and the earth seemed to groan as if it were alive. But then something even more terrifying happened. The grave started to bleed. A thick, dark red blood began to seep from the earth around the gravestone, slowly pooling around the base. It was as if the earth itself was reacting to their presence, as if something ancient and vengeful had awoken. The sight was horrifying, and the air turned colder, as if the very atmosphere was rejecting them. Hannah and Neil screamed in fear, their hearts pounding in their chests. The earthquake raged on, making it difficult to stand. The trees creaked and cracked, and rocks fell around them. Desperately, they turned to run. They raced down the mountain, barely able to keep their footing as the ground shook beneath them. The path that had once seemed familiar was now a blur of chaos. Hannah stumbled, but Neil grabbed her hand, pulling her forward as they ran faster, trying to escape the terror that had been unleashed when they finally reached the bottom of the hill. They ran back to the school, their breaths ragged with fear. But when they arrived at the gates, the sense of dread only deepened. The schoolyard, typically filled with students, was empty. No classmates, no teachers, nothing. "What is happening?" Hannah whispered, her voice trembling. Neil looked around, trying to make sense of the situation. This can't be real. Where is everyone?" They hurried inside, each step echoing in the hollow, lifeless hallways. The once familiar sound of chatter and footsteps was replaced by a chilling silence that made their hearts race. It felt like they had entered a world that wasn't their own. With every door they opened, they found nothing but emptiness. The classroom stood still, as though frozen in time. The blackboards were blank, the desks in perfect order, yet there was no sign of anyone. The curse was not just something that followed them from the mountain, it was spreading, and Neil and Hannah were at the center of it. Confused and terrified, Hannah and Neil ran into the city, hoping to find answers. But what they saw was even worse. The streets, which had once been crowded with people, were now deserted. The city was eerily silent, no cars, no voices, no signs of life. It was as if everyone had vanished in an instant,